Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm joined by the mighty Joe Yeager. Well, my Joe, here we are in late October, and it's still beautiful here in the hub. I just want to point out, you're rocking the Panama Jack, the awesome Hawaiian shirt. That's really nice. You got the Godfather hat on, even the Godfather shades. I mean, you look straight out of.
You're looking pretty strong yourself.
You know, we're trying to do our thing. But speaking of do their thing, Texas Tech did not so much against Baylor. Homecoming loss, 59-35. We've talked a lot about that, but now it's on to TCU, another in-state conference rival. Texas Tech takes on the Horned Frogs in Fort Worth, 2:30 p.m. Central Time Saturday. That game will be televised on Fox. But just real quick, before we move on to TCU, let's just say where we're at right now after a couple of days to digest, crunch the numbers, all that on Texas Tech at 5-2 and overall and 3-1 in the Big 12.
Yeah, I just at this point I'm hoping that the Baylor game was particularly on the defensive side of the ball, and even more specifically with the run defense.
Yeah,
hoping that was some sort of an aberration.
Yeah,
for whatever reason, I mean, there could be a million different things that contributed to that, but we hope that wasn't the sort of defense and rush defense that we're going to see moving forward.
Yeah,
if it is, it's going to be hard to win games. So that's something that they've got to get taken care of, obviously.
That and special teams. Let's hope that's an aberration.
Yeah, right.
Because it's been great all year, and It was terrible Saturday. I think it all came together, confluence of terribleness to produce that result. But again, week-to-week proposition, college football is, certainly Texas Tech football. What's your overall impression of the Horned Frogs? I believe they're 4-3 overall and 2-2 in the Big 12, coming off a close win on the road at Utah, who, man, appears to all of a sudden be everybody's whipping boy. Too bad. I went from, good thing Tech isn't playing Utah. I wish they were playing Utah this year. But what do you think about TCU?
What's interesting about TCU is, well, first off, they defend the pass very, very well, and they throw the ball very, very well.
But
now the thing is, they don't run the football particularly well.
No.
Who does that remind you of?
Baylor.
Yeah. Right. I mean, they're averaging TCU about 100 yards rushing per game. And I think like 3.3 yards per carry or something. So they haven't run it on anybody. And yet Baylor had not run it on anybody. And then they just tore Texas Tech up. Some guy from, out of the bull rushes named Bryson Washington that averages 11 plus yards per carry on you. So you can't take for granted the fact that you're just going to be able to line up and stop the run, even against a weak running offense. So, I mean, that's sort of the profile with TCU moving forward. And, that whole how does Tech fare against the running game is going to be, I think, central to this game, really.
Yeah, and then also offensively for Texas Tech, Taj Brooks is probably their best player. I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say. And the running game's been pretty good. And TCU has not been good in defending the run overall on the season. Not like where we were used to, of course, with Gary Patterson, the defense they played. So here's an opportunity for Texas Tech to really establish some physicality, something that we talked with Joey McGuire about after that Baylor game that was lacking. And during the 4-game winning streak, physical team, even the defense was flying around, not putting up great numbers, but doing enough to create some turnovers, force field goals instead of touchdowns in the red zone, and then the offense and special teams did enough, So if Texas Tech can establish that physicality with the running game, I think that would be huge against a TCU defense that, like you said, has been pretty dang good against the pass, but not so much against the run.
Yeah, and I think that Tech running the football plays directly into what you can do on defense. I mean,
I know
what you want to do on defense.
Complimentary football, we hear so much about.
That's right. And, I think it just makes all the sense in the world for Texas Tech to really ride the running game against TCU, sustain some long offensive drives. Don't expose that defense any more than you absolutely have to. And, you may be running the football so much, hopefully you run it effectively so that you have the opportunity to run it so much. But, you can't. You're going to need to spell Taj maybe a little bit. You don't want him getting maybe 35 carries, sprinkle in some Cameron Dickey, a little bit of Jacoby Williams there as well, and just hammer them on the ground for as long as you possibly can. And I think you could do your defense a power of good with that approach.
And this rivalry is called the Battle for the Saddle. It used to be the Saddle of West Texas when it first was established, which, I don't think anybody nowadays considers Fort Worth West Texas. I know I don't. I'm from the Plex, but it is battle for the saddle. Texas Tech has the saddle here right now because they won last year. If they could win, this would be the first time someone's won back-to-back battles for the saddle in quite some time. So that could be an accomplishment. And I do think, for whatever it's worth, that TCU is Texas Tech's top remaining rival in the Big 12. Now, is it a huge rivalry? I think that's for y'all to decide, the fans to decide. But what do you think in terms of, I think we talk about it in the rapid fire, but how big of a game is this in terms of the rivalry and then just in the context of the rest of your season?
Yeah, as far as a rivalry goes, I mean, there's proximity there. I mean, even though it's really not West Texas, it's the closest Big 12 school,
right?
Texas Tech, right? And it's a series that goes way, way back. I think it goes back to Slinging Sammy Baugh and all those guys. Periodically here and there's been a little bit of rancor. What was the whole Cactus Tech thing a while back, and it seems like they're trying to get Tech's goat from time to time. So there's some of that. I think it has the potential. And something has to fill the void, right? I mean, you don't have Texas A&M anymore, or even Oklahoma to hate. So somebody's got, you got to have somebody to hate, right? So it's got to be, maybe the Horned Frogs are a pretty good candidate, And as far as the rest of the season goes, it's just, again, I think it comes back to what you do on defense, and do you play the defense that you played during that 4-game winning streak?
Right.
Or is the defense showed up against Baylor? The defense has got to get right. That may be even more important than actually winning the game. You definitely want to win the game, but at least if your defense looks good again, and if you lose a really close game, you can feel like, okay, the defense is good enough moving forward that we can win some more games. But if your defense is awful again, then you're looking at, what can we do against the rest of our opponents the rest of the season? And that terrible defense becomes less of a question mark and more of an exclamation point. Like, this is the way it is. This is not, what's going on here? So to me, it's just about getting the defense right as much as anything else.
Well, after TCU, you have Iowa State and Ames, and that's always difficult, even when they're not very good. And they appear to be pretty good this year. So, if you lose at TCU, then you're staring down the barrel of a 3-game losing streak coming off that 4-game winning streak. And I think things can snowball. Now, maybe that's just inconvenient narrative, easy narrative to make, but I don't know. Those things seem to take on a life of their own, all the negativity and all that. Because then you got Colorado coming here, which, considering your pass defense, that doesn't appear to be a very good matchup on paper. You have at Oklahoma State, who's not good, but it's there. That's tough historically. You have won there before, even somewhat recently, but not a lot. And then West Virginia has shown an ability to come in and kick your butt in your house, even when they haven't been very good. I think Tech should be at least 50-50, if not favored in that game. But I'm just saying, I think this game is important in terms of setting the table for the rest of the season. It appears that way. It's college football. It's crazy. We'll have to see. But Mighty Joe, great stuff from you as always. Thank y'all for watching, and until next time.